Rhino activist Jamie Joseph has called for the minimum sentence legislation in South Africa for wildlife poachers. Joseph, from the anti-poaching organisation Saving the Wild, has been speaking on the sidelines of the misconduct disciplinary hearing of suspended Regional Court President Eric Nzimande in Durban. Saving the Wild has been permitted to intervene in the hearing. The Magistrates Commission has charged Nzimande for allegedly receiving gratification for aspirant magistrates in the province for recommending their appointments in an acting or permanent capacity.
The whistleblower and activist, whose life is under threat, moves around with personal protection. Joseph, who was attending the ongoing disciplinary hearing of Nzimande, says she has no fixed address. She's previously alleged that Nzimande is linked to magistrates and attorneys in the Zululand area who've either been guilty of corruption or soft on crime, including rhino poaching. Despite Joseph's efforts, an alleged rhino poaching kingpin from the area, Dumisani Gwala, was let off the hook by the courts last year, when the evidence against him was ruled inadmissible in a case which dragged on for 9 years and was postponed more than 30 times. This footage shows Gwala's arrest during a sting operation when he allegedly tried to buy rhino horn from 2 undercover policemen.
So specific to rhino poaching, KwaZulu-Natal is known as the catch and release province. So poachers come there because they know that they're probably going to get away with it. I can show you spreadsheets of poachers getting off with fines.
Joseph alleges this is because of bribes involving defence attorneys and magistrates. Zwelonke Ngwenya, an attorney who defended Gwala and also acted as a magistrate, has been subpoenaed as a witness in Nzimande's disciplinary, as well as in the pending criminal trial, in connection with money paid into Nzimande's bank accounts. In its investigation, the Magistrates Commission uncovered that Ngwenya was acting as Gwala's defence attorney while he was an acting magistrate. Nzimande, however, faces no charges linking him to rhino poaching. Meanwhile, the rate of poaching in the province is increasing. The province's flagship reserve, the Mfolozi Park, bore the brunt of the total of 499 rhinos slaughtered in the country last year. Joseph fears there's no hope for the rhinos in that part of the province.
Well, it's quite obvious because we're losing, almost all the rhinos are being lost in one park, Mfolozi Park, 307 rhinos, that's a record loss. And there's very, very few arrests. If you look at the statistics last year, you can't say, oh, well, there's too much pressure now because Kruger's lost so many rhinos, so the poachers are coming down. Yes, that's part of it. But the fact that there's no arrest shows that there's no intel-driven investigations.
In the last week, South African courts meted out lengthy prison sentences to poachers ranging from 15 to 25 years. Last year, verdicts were handed down in 36 rhino poaching and trafficking cases, of which 35 were guilty verdicts. While the conviction rate is improving, Joseph believes minimum sentence legislation might help save the rhino.
These rhino issues are actually human issues. Rhino poaching is organised crime of the highest level, and what's happening is it's criminalizing entire communities, even rangers and their families, wives and children. The impact of rhino poaching has an impact on, as we've seen in the courts, vehicle trafficking, human trafficking, kidnapping, murder. But there is hope, and our goal as the charity Saving the Wild is that we want to introduce minimum sentencing for rhino poaching. And that's because Mozambique has legislation. That's because it's 16 years minimum sentencing for rhino poaching. Across the border in Zimbabwe, it's 9 years. South Africa, there's no legislation. And we're all pretending that we want to protect rhinos, and it's just smoke and mirrors.
Joseph says to finally, after 8 years, bring to book one judicial officer for alleged corruption might just be the start of uncovering the rot. Rhino, SABC News, Durban.
For more on this conversation, we're now joined by Jamie Joseph, Director of Saving the Wild, and she joins us via our video link. Jamie, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. I mean, you are calling for a minimum sentence for wildlife poachers. Tell us why.
Because I've seen it work. I've seen it work in Mozambique, and I've seen it work in Zimbabwe. Just last Friday, I was in Mozambique for the closing statements of the rhino poaching kingpin trial of a notorious kingpin, Navarro. and he walked out there in an orange jumpsuit and shackled in cuffs, and he's facing 20 plus years. And we've never seen that happen in South Africa. The kingpins always get bail, and then they continue to massacre rhinos while they're out on bail and kill our people.
And do you think that if there is a minimum sentence for poachers, this will actually deter some of them?
100%. I mean, why wouldn't you kill rhinos in South Africa now? It's so easy. I mean, the chances of going to jail or actually staying in jail are very slim. Whereas, you know, if there's legislation, well, they can go and do something else. I mean, I'd prefer it if they stole a vehicle, because a vehicle is insured. There is no insurance policy for extinction.
What do you make of the current sentences being handed down to by South Africa, specifically to rhino poachers?
Well, in South Africa, you only see the big sentences. That's what they want you to see. So they put that out in the news. But there's small pockets of good sentencing. The rest of the time, they're getting off with petty fines or like 2 or 3 year sentences. And then a lot of the time, even with these big sentences, they're out a couple of years later, and the rangers are picking up the same poachers. And what people need to understand is it's not even just about animals. This is something that affects all different industries of crime, from human trafficking to kidnapping and murder.
Why is this fight against rhino poaching so important to you?
Well, as a South African, I think we need to protect our natural heritage. Rhinos are sacred to African culture, but more than that, you have to think about the jobs. You know, you're looking at entire communities that surround these wildlife areas, and if they're not working in wildlife tourism, then what are they doing? You know, there's families that need to be taken care of.
And, you know, when it comes to preserving these rhinos, I mean, why is it so important for us to ensure that for generations to come, that by having this minimum sentence, that, you know, other generations can still experience rhinos the way we experience them?
I mean, rhinos have walked the earth for 50 million years. They are modern day dinosaurs. So if we lose the rhino, we're really amputating pieces of our own evolution, our own humanity. So, you know, I would think it is important. But it's hard. It's hard to talk about saving animals when you're dealing with a country that's just rampant in corruption, and people are struggling for food and for medical supplies. But these things do matter, and somehow we've got to just figure it all out.
Do you think the authorities are taking the issue of rhino poaching seriously in this country?
No, not at all.
And what makes you say that?
Well, because everybody gets away with everything. I mean, we've got our people that are being murdered on the streets, literally, like Saving the Wild ran the intel to take down the Kruger kingpin. And in the lead up to the trial, Lieutenant Colonel Leroy Bruver from the Hawks Police was gunned down in the street. You know, we've had Anton Mzimande from the Timbavati. He was murdered in front of his wife and children because he was outspoken about corruption. Just last week in Mozambique, I was with one of the witnesses whose husband was murdered right in front of her. By this, you know, shot point blank, and you know, she was kidnapped, and the 4-week-old baby was in the other vehicle. No, it's horrific. I mean, the things that are going on, the world has no idea what's going on in South Africa with rhino poaching, and how violent it is, and how it's criminalizing entire communities, and they just don't understand the human cost.
Let's move on to some light-hearted news, and we understand that the issue of saving the wild is going to be turned into a movie that will be produced by Margot Robbie. Tell us more about that.
Okay. So Margot and I met in LA in June 2018. And it was interesting because it was actually around about the time when we were pursuing the Kruger Kingpin. And I was like, Margot, you better be serious about this movie because I should be back in South Africa right now. And the next morning, it was like, okay, let's do this. And then a year later, her and the team, the production team, came out to Kruger and spent about a week or 8-9 days with us. And I just had the screenwriter with me this last week because obviously we had the disciplinary hearing of Nzimande, and then I took him into Zululand to meet the people on the front line. So, yeah, look, the first draft of the script is in. They're still aiming for a shooting script by the end of the year, and they obviously want to shoot it in South Africa. So, I mean, it's massive. I mean, not since 1988, Gorillas in the Mist, has there been a movie that has the potential to save a species. But it's a lot bigger than that because, I mean, this is an opportunity to really shine a light on the corruption in South Africa and the impact. What is it, 2024, where this is 30 years of democracy?
And, when can we expect to actually see this movie come to our big screen? I know it's going to take a bit of time, but, when can we actually see this? Is it going to take 2 or 3 years?
That's something you'll have to ask the producers. I can't make that call.
All right, Jamie, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. That is Jamie Joseph, Director of Saving the Wild, talking to us, of course, about calls for a minimum sentence when it comes to rhino poachers or wildlife poachers. Of course, this is an effort of trying to save these animals from being extinct.